Welcome to Switched On Thinking, a podcast that explores the real-world networking challenges faced by businesses of today and the future. Twice a month, we deliver insightful and informative analysis of the key role that networking technology plays in driving business success and ensuring business continuity. Switched On Thinking is brought to you by NETGEAR, delivering innovative networking solutions you can count on, so you can spend more time on what matters most, growing your business. Now, here's your host, acclaimed author and tech columnist, Neil C Hughes.
Welcome back to the Switched On Thinking podcast, where every 2 weeks we're going to be discussing how NETGEAR and its partners are solving the real-world business and home networking challenges of today and the future. And in today's episode, I want to not only understand the changing demands of the small business network, but also learn more about the lines between the connectivity that we use in our offices, at work, school, or at home are not only blurring, they're disappearing. Because the standard expectation of every family member now is that connectivity is seamless wherever we are. And what does that mean to a company like NETGEAR, who are challenged with delivering the flexibility and continuity to both homes and businesses? So I've invited Gary Newson and Ollie Randall from NETGEAR to join me on today's episode to find out more. So let's get them both onto the podcast right now. So a big welcome to the Switched On Thinking podcast, guys. Can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your role at NETGEAR and the kind of problems that you're setting out to solve with technology?
Hi, Neil. Yeah, my name's Gary Newson. I am the regional marketing manager for the UK, but I also oversee EMEA as well. So I have overall marketing responsibility for EMEA at NETGEAR. Effectively, the biggest problems I see within today's world when we're looking at technology is it's changed quite a lot actually in the past 6 months, as you would imagine. But we see challenges everywhere from consumer to business, where people's ultimate end goal is to receive the best possible connection to the internet that they possibly can get. That's effectively the crux of where most of these issues come into, and that's what our technologies ultimately solve. We aim to provide people the best possible connection to the internet that they possibly can get, whether that's for a consumer purpose or whether that's for a business purpose. That is the ultimate outcome of what we're trying to achieve at NETGEAR.
So I'm Ollie Randall. I'm the regional director for NETGEAR in the UK, responsible for all of the sales here in this region. I think from NETGEAR's perspective on technology and how we're trying to help with business and consumer, I think it's most important thing is looking after the expansion and the growth of home or business networks and the flexibility that is needed for people. I think we've seen in recent times the demand on the networks increase on a business and home base. I think people need to expand what was to the further reaches of the home or to the further reaches of the office for faster, more reliable connectivity speeds. And, NETGEAR's main purpose is to be able to facilitate, as quite clearly as Gary said as well, for connectivity, making sure that people have a seamless and reliable connection for their networks, be it, connected to the internet or just the data flow and traffic that they need to put across their network, making sure it's running at optimal and maximum efficiency to benefit their workforce and or home users.
Now, Ollie, I also believe you've been with NETGEAR for 17 years. And first of all, I've got to say, you don't look old enough to have been there 17 years. So life must be treating you fairly well there. But just to put that figure into perspective, that was before iPhones, app stores and iPads. So I'm curious, what are the most significant changes that you've seen throughout your career at NETGEAR?
Neil, they're very kind words. You're clearly not viewing me through an HD camera because I am very well aged. I've been hitting NETGEAR a long time. There have been a lot of changes. I suppose most significantly for me, it's seeing the speed, performance, reliability of all the networks and or the hardware that we provide, seeing the demands for those increase, driving us to bring out newer technology to keep up with all the peripheral demands that are going on within that network. And we could look at that more specifically if we look at For the home consumer, when Netflix has been introduced, streaming services are now the most popular form of absorbing media. And the demand on the network has moved from, 1080p that used to be the most wonderful technology in visual to up to 4K. And we're talking about 8K visuals now as well. All put that extra speed and demand on the networks. These things weren't around when I joined NETGEAR. And especially now as we look at all of the service providers, and if we look at Apple, for instance, now they're looking at all their streaming services, how they get content to you, and it's all back and all driven to the home networks. And this is why this drives the ISPs to deliver faster network speeds to us, because we have this higher demand that's being put onto them that then gets put onto NETGEAR. And this is why, from a NETGEAR perspective, I've seen wireless speeds move from 11 megabits per second, to now going way over gigabit speeds. When 11 megabits per second was the best thing ever for us to have a wireless connectivity, to 802.11g that came out at 54 megabits per second, 5 times faster. The push and the drive of technology has just gone through the roof. And I don't see that stopping. I think the demand from consumers and businesses alike on what they're doing with data now and how they need to pass data across is going to keep driving this demand up and up and up. And if we look at it from the business sense of the perspective, I think, a 10 megabit hub used to be the latest and greatest technology to have devices hardwired into the network, into the office. We're now looking at 40 gig ports. So that, again, the technology has just continued to accelerate because of the demands of audio visual, passing huge amounts of packets of high definition video around to different screens and different places. And like I say, as technology and people move on, this inspires NETGEAR to keep pushing the boundaries of what people are needing to be able to keep up with the demands of the networks that they have in modern day.
Completely agree, Ollie, with so many of the sentiments in there. And Gary, more recently, COVID has been credited with speeding up the pace of the digital transformation of just about everything. But I'm curious, what are the biggest changes that you've seen this year?
Yeah, I think, Neil, I would agree with that in the sense of, I think the adoption of technology has been expedited, should we say. So when we look at the key transitions and trends that have come off of the back of obviously COVID, with people working at home, if we look at businesses to start off with, obviously everyone's had to adapt to the way that they do business now. So it may be that rather than having people in an office, they're now working from home or remotely. So we've seen an influx of the demand for cloud managed devices, where you may have an employer who wants to provide a dedicated network for their employees at home so that they have a more reliable connection for business use when they are in their home setting. If we look at the adoption of technologies, we see obviously now that there are more people on the network at once. So you may, for example, have someone like myself or Ollie even, where he's got himself working on video conference calls or even recording podcasts, for example, whilst he's got 2 children at home that may want to be playing on Xbox or streaming things. And then on the other side, he may have his wife who's on a WhatsApp call with a friend. The demand on the network there has driven the adoption of things like and technologies like Wi-Fi 6 as well. So where we do see improvements in efficiency and also the number of devices that can be connected to the network without losing or getting a degradation into the connection that you're getting to each of those devices. So we've seen that. Not only that, now flexibility in working has become much bigger. So we start looking there at things like mobile technologies, where people can go to the park and be isolated and work in a setting that might not be what it was previously known as a traditional work setting. So I think overall we've seen a huge transition, whether that be from the way businesses operate to the way consumers operate when they're at home. And that has driven a demand for not only just networking technologies, but also smart home technologies as a whole. I think now that people are spending more time at home, the reality is people are starting to appreciate that there is more demand on their network, whether that be for a business application use, whether they're running a small business from home, or whether that is an actual pure consumer-led function where they may be looking to game and stream and all of the other things that you would expect to get in a family household. So I think from that perspective, they're probably the biggest transitions we've seen during COVID within the technology spaces. And to be honest, who knows where the workspace is going to be in 6 months' time, and who knows what the demand on the network is going to be in 6 months' time either.
So true what you're saying there, Gary. And I think so much that you're talking about there's going to resonate with a lot of people listening, especially when we have 2 new game consoles coming out this Christmas. And a video game download is 100 gig at a time as well, which is just insane. And one of the big shifts in focus that I've seen at the moment is around business continuity and that importance of it. And I've had a great quote from you, Ollie, where you said reliability is now where wireless is making its name. So can you expand on how the reliability of Wi-Fi is now critical, not just for consumers, but consumers and businesses alike now?
Yeah, I think we can probably break it down to connectivity is critical. I mean, as we look at it from the state of a mobile phone, having connection to be able to make calls or again download data to be able to receive, this connectivity and Wi-Fi falls into that category. Like I said before, there's such a high demand now on constant and or reliable connections that you can ill afford to have anything drop off or not work, much like the conversation we're having now. It's all done actually over my Wi-Fi network as I sit at home. For this to drop in and out and not to be able to finish that call and not to be able to stream the video has put that demand on the Wi-Fi networks to become hugely robust and reliable. And the faster the speeds, the greater the connectivity allows for this to happen. And as wireless has evolved and or, as the devices connecting to the wireless networks have evolved, they've now become incredibly reliable, and the performance of them is parallel to that of a wired network now. And this will only continue to go from strength to strength with the introduction of mesh Wi-Fi that allows a single SSID to be able to be expanded across the home or the business to make that connectivity and roaming seamless, especially as we look at video conferencing and voice chat. Voice is the thing that you can't have drop in and out. And so that has really driven Wi-Fi to become that reliable source. And as you mentioned a moment ago with the PS5 and the Xbox releases imminent, people are going to want that faster connection speeds, because if they do buy a digital only box, they need to be able to have that reliable connection at whatever position that is within their home or their business or wherever they're using a Wi-Fi connection to be able to download that data. It has to be reliable and it has to be constant. Otherwise, wireless doesn't and wouldn't have a future. And I think wireless is going to continue to grow, and it's going to continue to offer the flexibility to customers to be able to grow in accordance with their business. And that's, again, probably the most vital thing for Wi-Fi, is to offer people, opportunity for growth as and when times need it, or to expand or contract again as companies or homes need it. If you get a bigger house, you can buy an extra satellite and increase your mesh network. If all of a sudden you're coming to a busy time and period within business, and again, you can expand the amount of people that are able to jump on your network without having to do fixed points and desks or whatever else there may be required with that. And so wireless is become a huge dependent for business and consumers alike to be able to distribute mainly the internet and or data around, and will only continue to grow and get faster and stronger as the years go on.
And of course, we've talked about the importance of wireless and connectivity in businesses and in the homes. But Gary, can I ask you to expand on how reliability and connectivity is also critical for education and the increasing importance of online learning that we have now? Because again, this is a big area that is reliant on that Wi-Fi, isn't it?
Yeah, Neil. So I think, as we say, people have had to diversify, whether that is education or if we look at just the public sector as a whole, so government, education, healthcare, even those things, connectivity now, the reliance of that has become even more, and having that stable connection, as Ollie alluded to there, has become even more important. So if, for example, you look at education as a whole, you may now have teachers doing remote classes where they'll have 30 students on. The last thing you want to do is have your class midway through go down. So the connection there is vitally important. But even things now, when you look at how even doctors might consult with their patients, it may now be over video instead of face-to-face because of the associated risks with COVID. So from those perspectives, it's actually helped change the way that we can approach business and look at ways of actually becoming efficient or more efficient in some cases. So like I say, when it comes to education, those remote videos, but also teachers still need to speak to each other. So that goes back to the whole business case of actually just conference calls, as I say. But the way that we look at business now has changed as a whole. So you might have a personal trainer now that's gone online and now wants to stream their training sessions online so people can still participate. Or going back 5 years or so, or even longer than that, actually 10 years, the job of, say, an influencer or a YouTuber didn't exist. A professional gamer didn't exist. Now those things are all also critical to connection. So I don't think it's just even isolated to education as such. There's such a broader need for it in business now, for reliable connection, so that people can ultimately participate and be part of whatever it is they're looking to take part in.
And listening to you both talk there, it almost feels like it doesn't matter if you're a home user, if you're a child learning at school or in the home, or you're a business user that are working from home a few times of the week. Everybody is now facing those same challenges. So I've got to ask, do you think that the boundaries between learning and business are not only beginning to blur, but just completely disappearing? And I'll throw that to you first, Ollie.
Neil, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think there is a difference to Netgear. I don't think we discriminate between the need for reliable connectivity within the home or business. You know, Netgear prides itself on being able to deliver what it is the customer needs, be it business or consumer. And as you say, I think as you know, it's not my place to determine what's important for each individual, only that I can deliver what is important for each individual to their network. And I think that's the most important thing for us now, is to look at it on an individual case, whether, as Gary quite rightly said there, it's a child needing to learn at home online to stay connected to its class, or whether it's the local business having to stay online so it can receive its orders and make its shipments to help the economy. Both to us are equally important, and it's something we strive to make sure that we are there to support both of those needs at the time they arise, with all the product and technology we can to be able to support the demand that's placed on them.
And Gary, are you seeing those lines completely disappearing too?
Yeah, one of the common questions as a marketer we see is, what's the right product for me? And I think now that question gets asked, that blurred line is obviously there even more so, because we're now not just saying, okay, to a consumer, is it for personal use? Now a lot of people say, well, no, actually we need it because we're working from home and we need better connectivity. So we are seeing not necessarily the application change, but the demand there and what product we might recommend could be very different. So for example, we have, obviously you've had previous conversations on the podcast about the trend or movement from Wi-Fi 5 to Wi-Fi 6. We offer Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 products for both consumer and business. Now, from our perspective, the questions that we're asking more so now are, okay, what is the prime use for this? Is it consumer or business? And I think most people now have that demand. So you might have an office at the end of the garden, so actually a mobile router might be more appropriate, or you may run a small business and from your house and need to have separate SSIDs, because you may actually still have people connecting to the network where you need to secure your business data. So now we've got the SXK80, which is the new Orbi Pro Wi-Fi 6. So we have products to suit everyone's needs. I think that boundary, though, is becoming more blurred due to the fact that people are now using their homes as office spaces.
And as demand for connectivity and reliability increases, there is also a lot of excitement and hype around Wi-Fi 6 right now. And for people that are still sitting on the fence around that hype, maybe they're sat watching their curved 3D TV and Betamax video recorder that have been hit by too many tech fails or just fallen for the hype before. For those people, what is it that is genuinely exciting about Wi-Fi 6, and what kind of difference would it make in their world? Can you possibly provide a few use cases that will just bring it to life to help people understand?
I think from my perspective, Neil, on this one, I don't think we can call it hype anymore. I think it's actually happening. That transition is there. People are moving. You're starting to see an increase in the number of Wi-Fi 6 compatible devices, whether it be phones, laptops, tablets, and now even last week with the announcement of the PlayStation 5 actually having Wi-Fi 6 connectivity capabilities as well. So I think it's a matter of time before it becomes the new common standard, similarly to how it did with Wi-Fi 5 and then Wi-Fi 4 before that. So it will become the norm, and the reality is now is the time to do it, because you're not only preparing your network for the now, but also the future as well. So Wi-Fi 6 routers are completely backwards compatible with Wi-Fi 5 devices, so you'll still be able to connect those in. But as you move forwards, you'll get the benefits of increased capacity, i.e. more devices being able to connect to your network as well, which is now more so than ever hugely important with the influx of smart home devices, whether it be your smart speakers, your light bulbs, your security cameras, whatever it may be. You are adding more to your network. I mean, now if I was to ask you, Neil, how many devices do you have on your network, and you actually thought about it, you would probably turn around and actually, until you gave me that number, you wouldn't have really ever thought about it.
Yeah. It's a scary figure when you add it all up. And of course, almost every home appliance that you buy now, even a toaster, will come with an always-on Wi-Fi connection. And I think there is that insatiable thirst for bandwidth that we've all got. And of course, we just expect everything to work. And that becomes our standard expectation. And when anything goes down, you will see how a family descends into chaos. But what excites you, Ollie, on that front with Wi-Fi 6?
For me, Wi-Fi 6 has finally bridged the gap of allowing everyone to be able to get, again, this unparalleled access to the data that they require at the same time. It's moved the networks on into the future, if you will. And for me, as I look at my personal, and I talk about, my own situation, I have a 7-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, and my wife and I, we all live in the home. We have 19 devices that are connected to our network. My children now enjoy streaming Disney Plus onto their iPads and or Netflix. There is gaming in our life as well. So unfortunately, there's PlayStations, there's a Nintendo Switch on there as well. And they all want to be on doing something at the same time. Admittedly, they won't be using all of the devices, although it has been known for my son to be watching YouTube whilst playing on the computer. So again, causing that extra pressure within the network to be able to respond, to give what he is demanding from it now. And so Wi-Fi 6 is allowing households and companies to be able to put this higher demand and higher pressure within the network, and the higher bandwidth that's required to be able to do that, and or still work and function in a fashion that allows them to do what it is they are asking. And, for me, Wi-Fi 6 has come along just at the right time with, again, all the increase in technology that we see within the home. I think people have been buying more televisions recently. They've definitely been buying more laptops. Online streaming subscriptions are up. And again, people are now wanting to have more televisions streaming all at the same time, so they all don't have to watch the same thing. I know I am very keen on my children streaming and watching their films outside of the lounge, so I can obviously watch what I want in the lounge, so I don't have to watch cartoons or a film again that they want to, and I can watch my own. And these are all the things that a Wi-Fi 6 are allowing people to be able to do. And as Gary quite rightly said, all the peripherals now are coming Wi-Fi 6 compatible, because why? People are needing, and or manufacturers are needing, that extra bandwidth to be able to maybe offer the services that they are building up for the future, that they will be then, implementing onto their devices. So, Wi-Fi 6 will be on televisions, it's already on laptops, it's already in phones. And this is because there's going to be a higher demand and a higher bandwidth required for the applications that we're all going to be running on them. So Wi-Fi 6 is opening up a wonderful path for us to the future of all the things that we are yet to demand or will be demanding, that we will be able to deliver and people will be able to deliver. And so whilst it's a wonderful future proof at the moment to be able to have it integrated into your network while it works with all the other Wi-Fi 5 devices, we are seeing the adoption of Wi-Fi 6 probably become faster than the adoption of Wi-Fi 5. And I think that's especially paramount at the moment because people are spending more time at home and putting more demand and seeing the benefits of having that upgraded network.
I agree. And I think we can all agree as well that wireless networks are indeed the unsung heroes that make mobile, flexible and remote working possible. And we possibly all take it for granted too. But I'm going to ask you both to look into your virtual crystal balls now and ask, how do you see the future of work continuing to evolve? And what kind of role do you see Netgear playing in that future? And I'll ask that to you first, Gary.
But I'm in the situation where I manage a team that are remote anyway. So for us, the norm has always been to communicate via video conference calls when we aren't able to see each other every day. However, now we're obviously all working in home offices or in more open working spaces to allow for social distancing and things like that. So to be honest with you, I see that we are going to be seeing that it's inevitable that we will continue to see a difference in the way that we work. I think businesses are starting to appreciate that actually business can operate the same as it always did, or they have adapted to new ways of working, whether they are in an office or whether their employees are at home. Our main objective is to make sure that everyone, regardless of circumstance, is able to continue business with the most efficient connectivity that they possibly can. So I think that's me. I think Ollie would probably have a bit more insight, as he's obviously one of the main influencers, or is the influencing factor when it comes to office working in the UK.
Neil, I think for me, flexibility. It's looking into a crystal ball is all guessing, estimates, speculation. I think what wireless is able to provide for those people is the flexibility to tackle whatever comes along. Be that the case of people need to move to one particular place, like I said before, grow to a certain amount of people, take over a different section, make their shed at the bottom of their garden a new office. Wireless and I suppose people, how they're going to be acting in the future is Netgear offering them the flexibility to be able to work in a fashion that is however is needed. And for me, the workplace is going to evolve into something that may be more remote. People may want to save money on actual floor space and reinvest that into the company somehow, and so allow people to work from home and have smaller offices. We've seen it with certain businesses that are actually downsizing because they have seen the benefits of allowing from a home working force. So Netgear will always be pushing those boundaries to be able to make sure that flexibility and that enablement for the businesses and consumers to be able to work in a fashion that is going to benefit them and their business. And I see a lot more flexibility coming into the work life for sure. I think there's going to be probably less pronouncement around office space and more about office working. And that will be, well, as I said before, clearly supported by Netgear by wanting to be able to make sure whatever the demands of each of those things are, that Netgear are there to be able to provide that from a hardware perspective.
Yeah, it is very dangerous crystal ball gazing and into the future. I mean, every single year, November, December time, we have tech analysts and futurists predicting what technology is going to dominate the following year. But of course, no one predicted what was going to happen this year. So it'd be kind of interesting what they come up with next year. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. But before I do let you go, I can see that you both have some pretty cool gaming chairs there. So I've got to ask, is the Wi-Fi 6 Nighthawk Pro gaming router on your Christmas list, or is there something else exciting you on the horizon?
Neil, for me, absolutely. I enjoy a bit of online gaming, but I have to admit that enjoyment has been increased and improved upon due to the fact of the Nighthawk Pro gaming range. And most importantly now, with the introduction of the XR1000, it's allowing me personally to be able to optimize my network and gaming facilities, so it can at least try and help me get an edge over clearly the people that seem to be far better at gaming online than I am, Neil. So any advancement and any improvement I can get that my network is there to able to provide me is great. And I think sometimes people forget that, it's all very well having the greatest and fastest and best connections out there to be able to get your online gaming experience, less laggy, but it's all the intricate details of being able to look at who you're playing and picking which server you want to go on that make those small differences that allow you to become that better gamer and enjoying experience. I think it was, I can't quite remember, but there's a wonderful saying that it's the aggregation of marginal gains that make us succeed and be the best. So if we can take all the aggregational marginal gains that the XR1000 is able to offer, then it should help improve and or better our scores and performances. So for me, it's at the top of the list. I'm just hoping my wife is listening to this so she can put it under the Christmas tree.
Well, as a man of a certain age and slowing reaction times, I'll take any marginal gains that I can get.
Same for me. I need all the help I can get, Neil. I mean, I'm not as fast as I once was on the PlayStation or Xbox. So for me, anything that will give me a little bit of a upper hand will always be welcome in my office or man cave. So it's for me, anything like that, I definitely will be looking at the XR1000 for sure.
Excellent. Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. So before I let you go, could I just ask that you remind everyone listening where they can find out more information about anything we've talked about online today, keep up to speed with the work that you're doing, or even contacting your team if they are left with any questions?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I think from a UK perspective, there is obviously the UK store for all Christmas presents. That's store.netgear.co.uk. We do have a US store as well, which is store.netgear.com. And from any UK questions or any issues that my team can help with, we do have emails and or telephone numbers. Our telephone number for our office is 01344 458 200. Follow the options and we'll happily ask any pre-sales questions or post-sales questions that you may have on any of the products. And again, if you wish to reach us, it's uksales@netgear.com via email, and we'll happily again answer any questions or queries you may have on any of the product range. And we're there to be able to help you make the right choices.
And Neil, we do also have our standard website where you can find all product information. So netgear.com. We have obviously regional sites as well. So for any listeners out there that may be in another region, we do have our equivalents for the other regions as well. And we are also on all major social platforms as well. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. You can find us on all of them.
Well, a big thank you to both of you for coming on the podcast today. One thing that keeps popping in my head is a phrase you used earlier in the interview there, Ollie, was that connectivity is now where wireless is making its name. And I'm going to show my age here, but as we enter the holiday season and, of course, the Christmas period coming up, usually everyone used to unwrap their presents in the morning and everyone would be looking for batteries and someone would have to go out and find batteries from somewhere. But now, what I've noticed the last couple of years is the first thing you see is everyone tilting their head sideways, trying to get their Wi-Fi password as they try to connect to Ring doorbell, Home Assistant, tablets, games consoles, new phones. And that demand for bandwidth and connectivity is just going to increase month after month. So important, everything that you've talked about today, and a big thank you for offering a solution to that. So thanks again, guys.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Neil.
For me personally, there were so many great insights from today's guests, because flexibility is so much bigger than mobile and home working. And I challenge everybody listening to this podcast today over the holiday season to see how many new devices are added to your network over that period. Because in the next few weeks alone, we have a new range of smartphones, tablets, games consoles, and that's before we even look at things like Kindles, home assistants, doorbells, smart TVs, heating systems, lighting, and entertainment. So if the average home is going to have over 20 devices connect to their home router, for me, it highlights how our insatiable thirst for bandwidth will continue to grow. And beyond that, businesses, schools, governments, etc., all have the exact same challenges. And like we said at the very beginning of the episode there, those lines between these different worlds have not only blurred, they've disappeared. But as technology and users move on that, for me, it was great to hear how today's guest speaking passionately about how those challenges are exactly what drives NETGEAR and inspires them to create new technologies that make connectivity and roaming seamless. And as Gary said, Wi-Fi 6 is not overhyped. It's here, and it has finally bridged the gap of giving everyone this unparalleled access. But that's it for today's episode of Switched On Thinking. If you enjoyed the show as much as I did, please leave a rating and review and join me again in 2 weeks, where we will further explore how NETGEAR and its partners are solving the real-world business and home networking challenges of today and the future.